Hey, New Patient Group Nation, welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian right here, and welcome to Season 3, Episode number 6. Got a good one for you today. We are broadcasting from our new podcast studio, and it's now moving forward. As I've discussed, it's coming. These are all going to be duplicated over on our YouTube station, so actually get to see slides going on right now. For those of you watching it, what's over my shoulder here is our TV monitor that we do, our new video production room. We do all of our on-demand courses for our New Patient Group University platform, all of our on-demand courses, and a lot of other good stuff as well. So we invested in this for all of you out there. Could not be happier with the way it came out. And recently, I was a guest on the In Your Face podcast, and great podcast that I suggest listening to, and it'll be out soon. But I thought it would be cool to go ahead and do a playback of that podcast for our podcast for today. And it talks about the state of healthcare, COVID, and a lot of other things that we dive into. They asked a lot of really great questions. And, we dive into some stories, how we created and founded New Patient Group, how we view COVID, how I view the future of the practice, and which, by the way, we're going to have a upcoming podcast that is purely about what I envision the future looking like. We talked about Right Chat as well as obviously New Patient Group on the podcast. A lot of good stuff. I think everybody will enjoy it out there to just kind of get kind of my insights and everything going on. For our clients out there, some of this you've heard before, but I think I go even in more depth than what you've probably heard me go into just because of the setting being a guest on their podcast. So that's what today's podcast is going to be about. I think you'll really enjoy hearing our philosophy out there. If you're not a client or not an avid listener, for those of you who are clients and avid listeners, I know you're going to enjoy it too. And remember to go check this out on our YouTube station because what I'm going to do here in the background with this TV monitor is there's going to be a little slideshow playing. So as I talk about a topic, you'll get to see one of our slide decks from my keynotes for I Speak All Over the World. You get to see a deck and how that relates to the topic that I'm talking about, okay? Hope you enjoyed today's episode. We have a lot more new ones coming now that I'm back in my podcast studio. I've been able to get my head back wrapped around some really great content. We have 5 or 6 already done that are coming. It's just a matter of getting in here around my schedule and doing them. So thanks for all the avid listeners out there. Before we get started today, let's fire up the music.
Welcome to the New Patient Group podcast, where doctors, office managers, and other healthcare professionals learn how to thrive in today's competitive marketplace by mastering the business, consumer, and marketing aspects of the practice. If you want to make more money, dominate the competition, while working, spending, and stressing less, this podcast is for you. Now, your host. He is the leading authority in the new era of practice growth, founder and CEO of New Patient Group, managing partner of Right Chat, speaker and consultant for Align Technology, the makers of Invisalign, author for the Benson Koppel Resource, international motivational speaker, business and life coach, Brian Wright.
Blair Feldman here. And Craig Weiss here, and we are the co-hosts of the In Your Face podcast, where we discuss stories of building a thriving business in today's competitive marketplace. Blair has a very impressive background as a practicing orthodontist for 20 years and was the team orthodontist for the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Phoenix Suns for 3 seasons.
And Craig has scaled up a consumer business to over $1 billion valuation, and now we help orthodontists grow their practices.
Today, our guest is Brian Wright. Brian is the founder and CEO of the New Patient Group, a dental consulting company helping their clients grow and thrive by focusing on 3 pillars: leadership and culture, employee training, and digital marketing. He's also the host of the New Patient Group podcast. Brian is also the managing partner of Right Chat, a virtual receptionist designed to grow your business. He is a consultant and speaker for Align, and he writes for the Benson Koppel Resource. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, appreciate the intro. How are you doing?
We're doing well. Thank you for being here. We live in crazy times, so it's hard to not sort of start off by talking about, COVID-19 and sort of the impact that it's had on the dental industry in general. What are your thoughts on sort of how long this crisis is going to go on for, what impact it's going to have on the industry, what advice you might give to dentists and orthodontists, moving forward?
I think simply put, and honestly, this advice is for anybody that owns their business. What it's done is it's created pain. And one of the things we teach all over the world is that you every day have to create the pain sometimes for yourself, meaning that you could be fat and happy today, your business could be rocking and rolling. And that's a big fault of entrepreneurs to become comfortable. And a lot of people wait until a COVID type situation hits to press the emergency button. And once you feel the pain, as a clinician, you all know, when a patient feels a pain, it's too late. Doesn't mean they can't correct it, but it's going to cost them a lot more money and a lot more time. So you have to kind of pretend there's a COVID situation at all times and constantly be innovating and things like that. It's honestly we had 5 or 6 clients actually have their biggest May ever. And people look at that and they go, how is that possible? And the reality is they are, they've implemented the virtual consultation. They've implemented a lot of things on their digital marketing presence. They've trained their employees in a way. They run the business or they run the practice as an innovative business. And they're doing all of those things before they quote unquote have to. So whenever a COVID situation hits, they're good because their doors are still open during those times where everyone else is shutting down and panicking. And whether you're a flower shop owner, a plumber, a lawyer, or an orthodontist, the reality is you own a business and you have to constantly be innovating. And, with competition and the changing consumer out there, there's just a lot of new skill sets that are needed now than really, would they have helped you 5 or 10 years ago? Of course, but now it's no longer really an option. It's a required skill set that I'm sure we'll get into today. And one quick thing, you never told me you were the orthodontist for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Because sitting behind me, I don't know if you can see the baseballs, but I was an umpire in professional baseball for a while, and I never made it to the majors, but I was in the Arizona Rookie League and spent many months out there in Scottsdale and Peoria and all those surrounding areas.
That's awesome.
Calling games.
As you can imagine, the team really can't function without their orthodontist. At least that's what my wife and my mom keep telling me. So, thankfully for all my training, it's really served the team really well. So,
did you give them the spiel that the more you align your teeth, the straighter your swing's going to be? That's
right. If you want to get get all the way, over the fence, you really have to have 8 and 9 aligned. That's pretty critical.
Nice.
They know that. But so I'm curious, talk about, you mentioned that office that's actually having a good month. And then you mentioned sort of skill sets. I'm curious, what are the skill sets that you see kind of rising to the top that are unique in the practices that are at least surviving and maybe even thriving in this setting?
Yeah, it honestly is the 3 pillars of business success. And, for the last 20 years in and out of healthcare, I've spent, and I love doing it. My biggest passion in life is just helping people. I really truly believe everybody, regardless of color, gender, whatever, they can achieve prosperity, and prosperity means something different to everybody. But if you commit and do the right things, I truly believe anybody can achieve anything they want. Sometimes I wish politicians would talk more like that. But the reality of the situation is these 3 pillars, they help any business, whether it be in crisis or not. And if you look at it, I started studying it a long time ago where the 3 pillars of leadership and culture really evolve around everything related to your business. It's not just leadership and culture, but the reality is culture is your ultimate competitive advantage in this new economy. Without it, really nothing else works. You can train your employees till you're blue in the face, but when you turn around and you don't look, they won't implement it. You ask everybody to shoot digital marketing content that's required to thrive online today. Without the right culture, your team isn't going to do it. So they're all intertwined, and studying these things for a long time, if you look at the famous companies, they all function at peak levels in these 3 categories. If you look at most other companies, they actually, just being non-politically correct, they fail miserably in all 3 categories. Most people don't wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I need to grow my business. I need to look in the mirror and go figure out how to run it better and improve myself just as much as I want my team to improve. Most people don't think that way. The famous companies all do. They are constantly pushing their leadership team and the high-level executives to improve themselves using all kinds of different strategies. The employee training side, the skill set that is so needed now. If you look at, and this has always been this way, but when competition happens and it commoditizes things, there's reasons why now people buy based on the experience. And it's unfortunate that I believe the better clinician is being defeated by the better business. But the reality is, I think most people agree with that statement. Now, it's unfortunate. I think we all agree the best clinician should always win. And there was a time that was the case, but it's just not anymore because there's so many options. And consumers, we use this slide all the time that talks about how Forbes says that over, I think it's something where over 10,000 marketing messages a day is what any given consumer sees. So you see that and you go, my competition is far more than just another practice down the street. It's a flat screen TV. It's all these options that people are hit with every single day. And therefore, from the time people pick up the phone to call you to the time that you actually present money and every touch point in between, there's a very specific skill set that the employees have to have. And when you really look at the fundamentals of it, they have nothing to do with healthcare. It's sales fundamentals, which is a very dirty word in healthcare. And I'm a big believer the reason why it's a dirty word is that few people actually know the definition. So just quickly what the definition there is and why, whether you're the clinician, the receptionist, the assistant, whatever it may be, TC inside the practice environment, all the definition of sales is knowing how to educate in an ethical manner in a way that places more value on what you offer than other places people can choose to spend their money. So based on that definition, there's no reason to fear sales. And there's never been a time where it's more important that employees know from, when you pick up the phone as a receptionist, and this is actually one of the reasons why we created Right Chat, among others, is that when that receptionist answers the phone, you're the third one they've already called. So you are in direct competition with, are you better with every word that comes out of your mouth than the other receptionists that they're shopping around for? And, for orthodontic practices out there, the receptionist is not a data gathering tool. They are the ultimate sales tool to get more starts day one. And so whether it be sales fundamentals, customer service, hospitality, time management, the list is endless of the things that employees do every single day that really are not related to healthcare at all. Now you have to know how to take those skill sets and obviously apply it to every touch point throughout a given practice. That's a given. But even then, those are not healthcare related skill sets. And it's why, and we don't say don't learn from other clinicians or office managers. You should. I mean, you should gain as much wealth of knowledge as you can. But one of the things that makes us very unique and one of the reasons why we speak for a lot of very well-known companies out there is the fact we come from outside of healthcare. And we know the practice environment left and right, but our perception of everything that goes on inside the doors is very different oftentimes than people that worked inside the doors for many years. And I think it's a great combination of expertise from the people inside and outside. When you combine it together, it's very powerful. But that's that second pillar. And, we were talking about sports a minute ago. We make a lot of sports analogies in that, anyone who knows sports, or if you're a fan of music or a fan of whatever, if you're a chef, you have to practice it, and you have to practice your skill set repetitively on an ongoing basis. And that's what athletes are so good at, is they practice the same things over and over and over and over again on an endless basis for their entire career. Now, they also implement new things. But that's where so many businesses fail. So that employee training pillar, and one of the biggest reasons why our clients did very well during COVID, is that every single week they block at minimum an hour, some block 3 hours, completely blocked in the schedule, and they work on their business. And there's a big difference between working in it and on it. And most businesses are this way. But clinicians and the people inside the practice from 8 to 5 are seeing patients. So therefore, whenever you come back from an event or you hire a consultant or you do anything, you don't ever have time to implement it, role play and practice consistently enough to where it continually improves every single week. So a big reason I believe why they succeeded in COVID, among many other reasons, is the fact that they've had blocked time for months, sometimes years if they've been a client for a very long time, working on what does 5 years look from now. And they're always implementing things before they have to, such as the virtual consult. Our practices are big on it, but they didn't start doing it the second COVID hit. They've been doing it for years. And it's amazing if you market it right and you train your team right, how many people will pick the virtual consultation. The public wants it. Go ahead,
Brian. curious. You said a couple things there. I wanted to just sort of drill down on. I mean, you mentioned obviously strategy. Culture versus strategy. I mean, I love that Peter Drucker quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I think it's one that I think you believe in. I'm curious though, sort of big picture. How did you get into this space, right? I mean, I know as a baseball umpire, you were well trained for the curveballs and fastballs that the healthcare industry and the dental industry specifically would throw at you. But I'm curious how you got into this space as an outsider. I think our listeners would be interested in that.
That's opening up a can of worms right there, man. This is a little bit of a crazy story. The funny thing from an umpire standpoint, I did it when I was very young because you've got to get, everyone sees the major league umpires are obviously older, but all the guys coming up through the minors are younger. And there has never been anything in my life that prepared me more for presentation and verbiage skills than that job. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but you can imagine a situation growing up watching players on TV play that some of them your idol. And then you're 20, 21, and you're standing on a professional baseball field, and then now those players are the managers of those professional teams trying to work their selves back up to the majors. And some of them will come out and they'll rip you a new one. They're in your face, and they do it mostly just because they're testing you. And you have to look them back in the eye, and you have to make them think like you know what you're talking about, even if you don't. And it's done so much wonders for public speaking and just the confidence and things like that. So I think that's the side of the umpiring thing nobody really sees or sometimes thinks about. And that was a short career. I was in it for about 3 seasons. But during that time, I was opening companies. And it's something I've been doing for a long time, is finding problems in a particular industry and creating a company to solve it. In this particular industry, we see the 3 major problems, which is those pillars. In other industries, it's relatively the same in that, if you go and help, and I've helped restaurants and others with other companies that I've had, and the problems in those are the exact same. It's how people run the business. It's the lack of repetitive, ongoing training with people being held accountable at the highest levels to that training, and then how they do the digital marketing. Most companies just fail miserable in it. And I started studying from a very early age. I'm a big reader. You can't see it, but over there off camera is a shelf of library books. And they're always on our podcast. We always make recommendations on what to read, things like that. And I've been reading those since I was a young kid. And I just came to the conclusion that you can always have a company in any industry that focuses on helping the business become better, training the employees, and doing better digital marketing. And when you do, you crush people. And the beauty of it too is when you do it that way, you don't have to spend any money on advertising. And there was a time, so I was the CEO of a plastic surgery company out of Los Angeles. It's a long story that's how I got into healthcare. And it was purely a connection that I had that just for whatever reason, they kind of quote unquote fell in love with my skill set, and they offered me the job at the time. And so
there was a secret behind why you were so good looking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I certainly wasn't qualified for the job, and that's the piece from an entrepreneur standpoint. The majority of billionaires with a B.
Wait a second. I thought you were going to disclose what work you've had done.
Are you telling me that I look beautiful?
Are those pecs real?
Everything is real, I promise. But no, it's so from that day, I got into healthcare and I started noticing problems. And the problems were in sales, in that, the clinician would go to, and plastic surgeons are literally the highest trained clinician on the planet. Like, they're above vascular surgeons. They are at the top. And I started seeing these people that would go to years of school, come out in millions of dollars of debt, open up a business, and then when not looking, they trust their employees to do a skill set that they couldn't be hired for with any other job. And what I mean by that, and one of the things that I speak for Propel Orthodontics now and OrthoFi and Invisalign, one of the things I always consult with them about is the fact that every single day they trust people within the practice to sell their good or their product. And this goes for all, Care Credit, Lending Point, any company that wants you to sell more supplies. All of these companies trust people inside the practice environment to sell their stuff that they themselves would never hire on their own sales team in a million years. And it's a real big disconnect, because if you give the employees inside the practice the real world commercial sales fundamentals, it does so much for conversion and plugging the leaky hole. It's just nuts. So that's one of the things I saw on the plastic surgery side. And when we sold that company, I was on Craigslist one day. I was looking for a new lawn company, and I was on there for a couple other reasons as well. And I come across this doctor, Robert Stewart, in Pasadena, Texas, and he was looking for a marketer. And I had just started New Patient Group. We named it that because doctors think they need more new patients, and I wanted it to be a group of like-minded people that think very differently about how to grow their businesses compared to the competition, and hence the name. But at the time, I had no idea it would be in dentistry orthodontics at all. I had no clue. And I started working with him. Luckily, he brought us aboard. He was our first client. And about 8 months went by, and he hit Invisalign Premier status for the first time. And since then, they've changed the names and everything. But he had been selling Invisalign for 10 years and never reached that status. And I didn't even know what Invisalign was at the time. Like, I had seen the commercials, but that's as far as my knowledge went. So we never even mentioned the word Invisalign once inside his practice, but we focused on the 3 pillars. And teaching them how to run a better business, because running the business is no different in dentistry than it is as a restaurant or me running New Patient Group. The fundamentals and foundation apply. We started teaching customer service and hospitality and things like that, and they just started converting more cases. Digital marketing, they started showing up in ranks where they weren't before. And in comes his Invisalign rep at the time to congratulate him. And thankfully, the doctor at that time, because if he didn't, I don't know if I'd even be sitting here on your podcast today. He goes, "Don't thank me, walk down the hall and talk to that guy." And I was that guy. And this rep and I started talking about our business model and how we view business and things like that. And he was totally sold. He started recommending us to his clients that he worked with in Houston, where we're based out of. And the Invisalign numbers and overall growth numbers in every single practice we went into, they were having their best months, best years, best days, and their Invisalign numbers were going nuts without us ever even talking about Invisalign.
Brian, I have a question about that. I'm thinking about it, and I've obviously heard you speak before in person, and I really enjoyed it. But I always think about some of the other practices that I've either worked in or we've been in. My question is more from a farther back view about consulting in general. What are some of the common misconceptions? I mean, I know the one that I've heard before is, oh, the consultant's going to come in and fire everybody in my staff, and I'm just not interested. I mean, what would you say to somebody looking for your help, looking to grow their practice, looking to survive? I mean, how do you give them a soft entry, and how do you assure them that you're not going to come in and fire people unless that's exactly what you do?
Well, we only recommend it if needed,
Sure.
But, just to finish up the prior really quick. It's not all about it. So for people out there listening that don't do Invisalign or don't want to, it's not about Invisalign. It's the point that the treatment starts in your office. Become winners regardless of what you do if these skill sets are installed. And the next thing I know, we have New Patient Group in orthodontics and dentistry. That's not even why we opened the company. It's just, the backstory there. And I believe very heavily that many consultant models are failed models. And I would never jump up on stage and badmouth any particular one. That's not what we're about. But the reality is consultants, I believe, fail at the most important piece to individual and business success, and it's repetition, consistency, and accountability. You can't fly to someone's event on the weekend and come back and have a stamp of approval that you're a great CEO, or fly to someone's training facility and come back and you're the best TC or receptionist on the planet. It doesn't work that way, and it's no different than when you're working out. You can work out 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. It does nothing. The successful are 20 minutes a day for life. And that's what our program is we actually actively sell people and talk to people about that do not look at us as a consultant. We are supposed to be a division that you are hiring of your practice that is intended never to leave. We are there to constantly be studying data and give you the keys to success to always keep you 5 years ahead. We're very personal. My director of marketing, Haley Shaw, is assigned to all of our clients. She meets with them monthly. Our coaching program, we're in the practice repetitively throughout the year. We're also meeting via webinar multiple times a month. And that coaching and that repetition is above and beyond. Are our ideas good? Yeah, I think so, but everyone's ideas are good. It's that type thing. It's not the idea. it's the consistency, it's the follow-up, and it's the fact that we become part of their team way more than some kind of 6 months and we're gone. And I think our client retention rate kind of speaks for itself. It's over 99% now, is that they buy into this because most people have gone through the consultant model before, and kind of described what you said, is people come in, they try to clean house. And it's not what it's about, because if for CEOs listening out there, office managers, if you have employee problems, it's your fault. It's not the employees. That's the thing that it's very hard for people to understand. We hear it all the time. Susie, make-believe name, she won't do this, and Betty won't do that. And you look at the business owner and you say, well, why are they still around? And I have never seen a profession where the employees run the show more than in healthcare. I mean, if in the entrepreneur world, take my company, if I have an employee that won't shoot digital marketing content the way I want them, they're done. They're gone. The door's right there. Adios. See you later. Now, I don't run it like a dictator, but my employees all know that I mean business. And the culture is also in a way where I don't have to, be a dictator. But this firing employees, it always starts with leadership first. Because once you get that right and you offer, I always teach people, if you want a great client experience, you better darn well treat your employees even better, because it starts with your employee experience first. So that's one of the biggest things we install into practices from a leadership and culture standpoint, is enhancing the employee experience with unique bonuses. And we revamp job descriptions and job titles just so they're different than the competition, more unique.
It's interesting, Brian. I think there's two different themes there that I heard that resonate for me and Blair. One is this sort of extreme ownership, which is a great business book written by a couple of Navy SEALs about the fact that you can't blame your employees. Everything at the end of the day is your fault, right? Because the buck always stops with you, and it's something that we try to live and breathe ourselves. And I think it's a really effective, not just for business, but for life, for your marriage, for everything. Right. It's always sort of, if it didn't work, it's your fault. And the other piece that I like too is, you were mentioning sort of with the culture piece with the employees. I got the ability to meet Tony Hsieh, the founder of Zappos, and CEO, and his book Delivering Happiness is this great sort of vision of, you've got to create, you're delivering happiness in his case, not just to his consumers, but to his employees too, right, to make sure that they're always happy and they're able to have perceived progress, feeling good about themselves, that they're on the right path. And I think they're such important themes for any business. And I like the fact that, you're not a dentist, you're not an orthodontist, because, these are universal themes that are important in any business. And sometimes we can get lost inside our own industry without realizing that these are important, metrics and things to follow.
Yeah, those are great points. I think the outside the industry thing is as long as you know how to apply the outside of industry stuff to, we'll use an orthodontist as an example. It applies to all of them, plastic surgeon, dentist, but you have to know how to apply them to specific touch points throughout the practice, I think, to maximize their success. But it comes back to kind of the definitions earlier, is that people, and it's not a criticism, it's just I think that a lot of people just don't think about doing it. People, if you went and asked 100 people right now in any industry, forget healthcare, what's the definition of 5-star customer service? They don't know it. They do not know the definition. So therefore, how are you ever going to carry it out if you don't even know the definition? And that definition, I think, is the single most misunderstood and misinterpreted in business. And because I hear it all the time, our people are nice and we're friendly and we smile and things like that. Well, that's hospitality, a part of hospitality, totally different than customer service. Customer service is literally a systematic approach to get what you want from your clients while making them feel like you exceeded their expectations via every time they ever touch you. And that is very difficult, and it cannot be done without being an expert in the definition of sales. And if you look at data and you look at definitions and you use those two things to guide you through the business decisions you make, you literally can't lose. I mean, I've been doing it. I'm 41. I've had multiple multi-million-dollar companies in multiple industries, and it's not to toot the horn at all. It's just to put a little value on the fact that these things really work. And they work in a way that you don't even need to spend outside advertising dollars as long as you dominate in those key areas. that unfortunately most don't, but everybody could if they set their mind to it.
That's awesome. So, Brian, I get the feeling, and I knew this from, I think I spent a day with you, and I felt like I couldn't get enough. So I get the feeling that we could chat about this stuff for a long time and still really only scratch the surface. So I want to make sure that that we include all of the links for both your the website and the Right Chat in the notes. But what I'd like to do right now is move you into what we call our short answer or lightning round questions. And the first question we always like to know is, what do you feel like your business superpower is?
My business superpower, no doubt about it, is personal attention and customization.
Tell me just a little more about that, what that means.
We don't, when we bring aboard a client or our clients, and we found a way to make this scalable, it was very hard, is that what makes the client successful with any of my companies, Right Chat, et cetera, is the fact that they have a team assigned to them. It's not a trouble ticket. We become their employee in a sense. We know them, we touch them, we speak with them. They all get access to me, my chief operational officer, my director of marketing. All of us become their division of their business that help them grow. The customization is wrapped around the fact that every single thing we do as a company is based on their personalities, the type target market they're trying to hit with the consumer. Are they the Best Western, the Marriott, or the Ritz-Carlton as an example? Because every single one of those requires a totally different type of trained employee, a totally different type of culture, and a totally different type of digital marketing presence. It's not one and the same. So I think that is the reason, more than anything, every company I've ever had, is the closeness we have with our clients and that we are their partner and not necessarily an outside party, I think is the single biggest business power we have.
I love it. So one question we always love to ask our guests is, are you a Audible book listener, or are you a paper book reader? And what is there anything you're reading or listening to right now that you would that's kind of that you'd recommend or that's floating your boat?
It depends on my schedule, but even if I do an audiobook, I always go back and read it because I take notes, and sometimes it sparks an idea in my head. I write it down and put it into a keynote, when speaking. So it's both. My go-to though is still reading. I find it hard with the audiobooks to interpret, or just I guess not interpret's not the right word. Just remember what I just listened to. For me is a little bit more difficult. I would recommend, so there is 2 books, so you'd ask. So
yeah.
The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes, and The 4 Disciplines of Execution. I think neither one has anything to do with orthodontics, dentistry, et cetera, but at the same time, it has everything to do with it. We have something called employee performance indicators, and for everybody out there, you probably know key performance indicators, production, collections, starts, things like that. The problem with those is you can't control them. They're like the weight scale when you're trying to lose weight. People who fail at losing weight are constantly looking at the scale, which you can't control. What you have to do is manually track the calories, pay attention to that, hold yourself accountable to reducing them, and eventually the scale may come down. Now, for you, it may take a year. For me, it may take 3 years. But at least if you're looking at the right data, you're on the right track. That's where our employee performance indicators are. And the 4 Disciplines of Execution book dives into it. They call it a lead versus a lag measure. We have a different terminology. But it's tracking all the things right now that the business owner doesn't know. And what the EPIs do is show you how much you're losing. KPIs show you how much you're making. And when you start seeing visibility of those numbers, it's something that makes a lot of people literally throw up. They find out that the receptionist last year cost them $300,000 alone. The person presenting money cost them a couple hundred, and they're literally losing hundreds of thousands of dollars via every touch point along the way. The challenge is, I use Invisalign as an example, just because, you do an Invisalign case, doctors feel the pain because people reach in and they grab the lab fee out of your bank account. So you see, $1,500 or whatever your number is leave. So you feel that pain. You don't feel the pain when Betty, the TC, just blew the financial presentation and cost you $5,000, or Susie, the receptionist, dropped a couple calls and cost you $10,000. Like if that was being yanked out of your bank account every time it happened, people would be seeking employee training all over the place. But they don't know what they don't know. So those books are great. And one thing on the Ultimate Sales Machine, this is kind of the future, I think, of what healthcare. It's why Right Chat exists. I believe the future of healthcare is no front desk at all. And this is a whole show that we could talk about. I'm about to do a podcast about it. No front desk at all, meaning that there's not even a desk. Not only no receptionists or phones, there's not even a desk there. Virtual consultations are going to take over, and then the assistants are going to start being 1099, and a lot of them are going to work from home and monitor treatment virtually. And that's the inevitable future. We're kind of starting to live in it right now. But the outsource model is becoming more and more important. Fewer employees, outsource it to people that can do it better than your employees are going to do anyway, or that it's going to take you so long to train them, it's not even worth it. And the Ultimate Sales Machine dives into some pretty unique stuff that is not exactly like that. It doesn't talk about those things, but it really gets your mind thinking about the future and just how to just do things differently and stay significantly ahead of the competition and wherever your particular industry is headed.
Fascinating. I'm curious, either personally or professionally, what's Brian passionate about these days?
Oh man. When I have time for my personal life, it's my family. It's my 4 and 3-year-old, and then I have a wife. So definitely passionate about that. And before I had kids, I didn't think I was going to like kids, but man, oh man, I've fallen in love with them. And then I'm obsessed with airplanes. We have a plane. A friend of mine, the 2 other managing partners of Right Chat are both pilots. So we fly together. So I'm always on a simulator on my iPad or up there flying, and then baseball, right back there, but none of them other than family. Family's number one, obviously, but other than that, it's just helping people. It literally is a passion that I can't even describe in words. And I tell people all the time, I get more enjoyment out of seeing someone else succeed than our own company. It means that much to us.
Well, that passion for helping people is completely evident, and how you speak and how much work you've done to really sort of create this process of helping. So I would love just if you could share some ways that listeners can learn more. We'll certainly link the website in the chat. What other ways can people get a hold of you or learn more about you and what you're doing?
Sure. I mean, obviously the website's one of them. In the bottom right corner, my director of marketing runs our live chat. So, any questions can go out there. The New Patient Group podcast is a great way to get to know me. I always tell people that if you listen to that podcast and you love it, you should be a client. If you listen to it and you don't like me, you probably shouldn't. That's a good starting point there. And it's on our website. It's on iTunes, all that good stuff, Google Play. And you can also call me. I mean, I'm happy if, I'll give out my cell phone number directly to everybody right now. This is a piece that I think our clients appreciate too, is that I'm here for them. I don't hide behind the CEO title. I want to be involved with them. And the cell phone number is 832-331-6091. And, give me a text, give me a call. We can have a chat. So I think all that, or the 800 number on the site, all those.
That's awesome. Brian, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And we look forward to hearing more about you and the New Patient Group and talking more soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye-bye.